And here we are, getting together to speak about Jacob's ladder. The picture that probably comes to mind to most of us when we speak about Yaakov, it's kind of a powerful moment in his life, one that is discussed, commented, and elaborated upon, by a host of Torah commentaries. It's worth dedicating 20 minutes, 25 minutes to actually understanding the significance of this really seminal, life-changing moment in his life. So if you allow me just to put my notes a little bit in order here, I think this looks right. So this is, to give you the background, Yaakov is running away from home. That's because he got into a bit of trouble with Esau. Just to put it into perspective, I think he is by then in his 60s. Not little kids who had a fight, but adults who are arguing about the succession, believing that their father's death is near, as he did, and that's why he's giving the bracha and handing it over. As a result of the substitution, Yaakov is running away. And the parasha begins with Yaakov, who's running away, and you can imagine he's feeling very small. He's being pursued by Esau, and his place of refuge doesn't sound very exciting either. He's heard stories about Lavan. He's heard stories about the trickery, the deceiving. He hasn't seen anything yet, but he's heard about the dealings from his mother and about a brother. But that's where he's going. That's the only other family in the world he's got, and that's also where he's going to be looking for a wife. And at some point during the journey, which was brief, because our forefathers, they ended up kind of covering vast distances and much less time than it takes, super Concord kind of camel riding. And he arrives, but he spends the night. He spends the night at a place that is very holy, and he's not aware of that. He goes to sleep there because the sun sets and he can't travel anymore. And it's very scary. He's kind of between a rock and a hard place, between Esav on the one end, Lavan on the other, and there he's going to have to spend the night in the dark and hope and pray for the best. And this is where he falls asleep, and he has the famous dream of Jacob's ladder. He's lying there, and if we look at the text, he had a dream. There's a stairway, as they translated here. More correctly, possibly, it's a ladder. That's the more literal translation of the word sulam. So there's a ladder, a sulam, which is standing on the ground. Its head reaches heaven, and there are angels of Hashem going up and down on that ladder. That's the beginning of the dream. And then in the second part of the dream, there's Hashem standing, or maybe it's happened concurrently. Hashem is standing over him and making him amazing promises. First of all, about the land of Israel, the ground on which you're lying, which is going to be given to his offspring. Then a blessing of numerous offspring, and spreading all over. The famous words, ufaratsta, you will spread all over. West, east, north, and south. You can see, shades of Abraham's blessing initially also. This land is yours. This is where I'm going to give this to you. You're going to be numerous. You're going to be protected by me. So it's kind of the blessing carrying forward. It's also a confirmation of Hashem's blessing, of Yitzchak's blessing to him by making those promises. And Hashem says, I'm going to be with you. I'm going to guard you. You're going to come back here in peace. At that point, Yaakov wakes up and he realizes he's in a very, very, very holy place. So I'd like to point to the numerous uses of the words vehine, and hine. What does hine mean? And it's actually in the English, it's simply been omitted, ignored. But hine is, we always say, behold, see, hine. Look, it's here, it's in front of you. Again, the Hinei Sulam, there's the ladder, and then behold, there's God, and behold, there are angels. I think, then again, and behold, I'm going to look after you. But that's already in the words of Hashem. But in the vision of Yaakov, there is numerous times the word Vehine to say there was this ladder, and there were the angels, and there was God. And the Orach Chaim makes the point to us that the use of the word Hine is significant in that dreams normally can actually be nothing. Dreams can normally signify just, fertile imagination, a reflection of the thoughts that we've had in the course of the day. Dreams don't necessarily act as prophetic visions. They can be, they cannot be, or they can be partially true, and some elements of it are totally untrue at all. And one could elaborate on this, but halachically, dreams have no validity. If a parent comes in a dream and says, "Look, there's a treasure buried in your garden. I put it there before I died. There's X amount of money, and it's charity money. You've got to go and give it to tzedakah." You can go to the garden, you can dig, you can find the treasure. It can be cent for cent, rand for rand, the amount that your father mentioned in your dream, and you have no obligation to give it to tzedakah. Part of the dream is true, clearly it was. Part of the dream is just not true. So dreams normally don't have that level of importance. But in this case, because it's Vehine, it's kind of clear vision that he's having. So it's indicating to us that this is a prophetic dream that has serious, impactful relevance. And let's kind of delve into what our classical commentaries have to say about the significance of this dream. So we're going to start with Rashi, because that's always a good place to start. And Rashi comments on all the commentaries. Make the point that here we go. There are angels of God who are going olim veyordim. They're going up and then they're coming down, up and down. Angels who are heavenly, who are divine, should be coming down from heaven, then going back up again. So why are they seeing angels who are going up? Why is he rather seeing angels that are going up and then going down? Let's understand this. So here's Rashi, and he says, going up first and then coming down. He says those are the angels that were accompanying Yaakov. And clearly the fact that the angels are going up and coming down, it shows him the angels are with him. But for some reason they're going up, they're going down. So the fact that it talks about going up, then going down, means that the angels are with him. So Rashi's explanation, of course, he draws this from Bereshit Rabbah. He says that there was a changing of the guard. He was at the border. He was about to leave Eretz Israel. He was about to go into Mesopotamia, into Haran, where he was going to be living with Lavan. And so there are different angels, different levels of sanctity. Angels of Israel remain in Israel, angels of Chutz La'aretz, of diaspora. They can act in the diaspora. He was witnessing a changing of the guard. No worries, it was never exposed at any point, because as we saw in the next verse, they were the Hashem standing over him, so he was making sure that no harm would befall him during this changing of the guard. Now, it's significant that angels are with him all along. It's Hashem, and Hashem being above the angels is kind of showing the angels are my agents, and I instructed them. In fact, Ramban puts it as following very strongly. He says that although things on earth are done by angels, everything is by decree given to them by Hashem. And the angels of Hashem can do nothing until they return to Hashem, present themselves to him and say, this is what I've done, this is what's going on, and Hashem gives them instructions and comes down. So according to Ramban, what Yaakov is witnessing is that the angels that are accompanying him, and he doesn't go the route of changing of the garden, different angels. It says what he's seeing is that the angels are going up for a briefing. They're going up to the boss to get instructions and to be told what should be done. And clearly Hashem is above them, and Hashem is, instructing them, briefing them, and telling them what to do. And then Ramban quotes from a Medrash Rabbah once again, I'm pretty sure, that says that what he was actually seeing in prophecy was the future. He was seeing the dominion of the four kingdoms, four exiles. We're going to look at who they are, but there's, Daniel saw the kingdom of Greece, the kingdom of Persia, etc. So there are many visions in the prophets, and the angels of God here are not protective angels, according to a medrash called Pirkei de Rabbi Lazar, but it's actually angels representing those nations that are going to rule over the children of Israel, the children of Yaakov in the future. And so those four angels that he sees, which Pirkei de Rabbi Lazar actually lists and names. First he sees the angel of Babylon. The angel of Babylon, we all know the Babylonian exile lasted for 70 years. So he sees the prince of the kingdom of Babylon. Each nation has its kind of officer on high, a malach or a sar, they called it. He goes up 70 rungs, corresponding to the 70 years of the Babylonian exile. He comes back again. So he's going to be up 70 years, but down again. And then following on the Babylonians came the Persia, the kingdom of Media. And that lasted 52 years. That was followed by the Greeks, who ruled over us for 180 years. And then finally, he sees prince number 4, angel number 4, and that's Edom. That's a current exile. And he just sees it go up and not come down. Of course, that's, when fear and despair sets in, and Hashem says, no worries. No worries. I'm with you. It's going to be okay. So that's a prophetic vision about the future, and all of these are true. I mean, all of these interpretations can don't contradict one another and can act kind of concurrently. Yes, there is all of the above, but in this prophetic vision, according to Pirkei de Rabbi Lazar, Yaakov ends up being very scared. Hashem reassures him, I am with you. I will protect you until you come back, until all of the exiles are over. Medrash Rabbah says that this sulam, this ladder, corresponds to two things. Firstly, he says it corresponds to the altar. What was the altar made up? So the altar was called a Mizbeach Adamah. And that's the portion that you see here, the square, which is the actual altar, pretty tall, pretty high. As you can see my pointer there with the red background. And that was called Mizbech Adamah. It was filled with earth. It was hollow and filled with earth. And so that's the ground. Then we have a ramp going up. That's the ladder. And the ladder reaches heaven, which is the top there, where sacrifices are brought that ascend up to Hashem, and the Malachei Elokim that are going up and down is symbolic of the Kohanim, who are going to be offering services. So what he sees here is a vision of prayer. Prayer connects the ground with heaven. Prayer, of course, has taken the place of sacrifices. Today we don't have korbanot, we don't have sacrifices. And how do we connect with Hashem in that manner? So we're standing on the ground, but we can reach heaven by way of this ramp. Kohanim take our offerings, and in this case, it's we taking our own prayer book, our own siddur, and reaching up to Hashem through the medium of tefillah. And so that ladder represents prayer, taking us, remaining down here on the ground, and reaching way up there to heaven. That's one interpretation of the Medrash. The Medrash continues and says that also corresponds to Mount Sinai. So on the ground, you have the Jewish people. At the top, you have Hashem, represented here, a rays of light as well as a representation of the tablets of the law. And the ladder is Mount Sinai. So Mount Sinai, because Mount Sinai created that barrier, or removed that barrier that existed between heaven and earth. And until such time as there was this revelation at Sinai, there was a Berlin Wall between heaven and earth. There was no real way of connecting the two. And at Mount Sinai, that Berlin Wall came down, allowing for traffic to go both ways, top down and bottom up. In other words, it was possible to draw down sanctity into this world, and it was possible to rise and touch the divine, and that's a symbol of that ladder reaching way up there. How's that symbolic? Well, if you take the letters of the word Sinai, that's Samach, Yud, Nun, and Yud, add them up numerically, you get the number 130, which is actually the same as Sulam, which is spelled Samach, Lamed, and Mem. So we have Jews below, God above, and Mount Sinai creating that link. It's two ways in which we connect with the divine. We do this through prayer, which is kind of elevating ourselves. And we do this through Torah, which is kind of being drawn up, being pulled up from above. So the words of prayer come from within us, and they uplift us. And that's why we're not bound to the words as though, compulsory prayer, so to speak. I think the men of the Great Assembly made it easy for us in a sense. Sometimes it's a bit challenging to be stuck to the words of the Siddur. The prayer comes from within. You can use your own words, but Torah is prescribed. It's God's wisdom, and when you open a book of divine wisdom, you then connect with the divine, because you're connecting with Hashem's, as he put himself, in intellectual form that can enter into your intellect, so to speak, into your brain. And intellectual connection is very deep, because you become one with the thought, and the thought becomes part of you. And that's what we do when we learn Torah. So, that ladder that Jacob is experiencing is one that, from heaven, from earth to heaven, from heaven to earth, creates that bond with Hashem. Very, very powerful bond. And I want to show you the depth and the reach of this bond. If you look at the verse, I think I have it here, otherwise I'll have to scroll back, at the verse that describes where the ladder is. There we go. So where is the ladder, the stairway or the ladder? Set on the ground, top reach the sky. But look at the Hebrew. It doesn't say Sulam Mutzav al Haaretz and Magia ad Hashamayim. It doesn't say it was standing on the ground and reached to heaven. That expression, Artzah, and once again Hashamayim ma, which is kind of rather archaic old Hebrew form of saying to the ground and on the ground. And so Artzah is kind of in the ground, and Hashamayim means into heaven. So it's actually a stairway that connects the lowest and the highest. And that's the power of that amazing stairwell. How do we soar? How do we get to the top? How do we go up the steps of this ladder and get to the very top? So it's important to remember that you need the medium, which is the ladder. It has to stay on the ground and has to reach, has to, normally it's a ladder stands leaning against the wall. In this case, it's leaning against heaven that's supporting. Of course, it's not a real ladder. A real ladder, will be wobbling, but angels don't weigh all that much. Anyway, so on the ground, remember where you are at this particular point in time. You want to soar, aim up, reach for the stars, remain grounded, but reach way up, look way up. That's the way to do it. But you need a ladder. You can't just kind of stand on the ground and say, I wish I had wings and I wish I could fly and I want to be up there. The ladder is the structure we're given. As I said, there's Torah, mitzvot, prayer. Those are the rungs that allow us to get to the top. You need to do this carefully. Follow the instructions of the ladder, one rung at a time. Tempting to want to get to the top very quickly, so you skip rungs. You know what happens when you skip rungs? You slip. You slip, and then you can hurt yourself. You can end up lower than you were before. You can end up being really hurt. So important to remember that if you want to reach for the top, you've got to actually follow the instructions. The rungs may appear to be a hindrance, because there you're standing on a ladder, you got to go one step at a time, foot on, foot on, foot on. And you never look at the ladder and you say, well, if I actually try and climb up the ladder on the side where there are no rungs, it'll go much quicker because the rungs won't get in the way of my toes. You can try, but you might fall and hurt yourself. So it's important that if you want to reach the top, you remain within the structure. And so many of us make the mistake of saying we're going to get what we want to get on our own terms. We're not prepared to be prescribed, particularly if we want to reach God. We don't like organized religion that has a book and a code of law that tells us what to do. We just want to get to the top. It's important also to keep on looking up to see how much more we have to go. Looking down, there's a story about the Alter Rebbe. He from his window saw the kids were playing outside, and the game was to climb up a pole very high. And it was a ladder or a pole that put against the wall. And he noticed that it was only one child who was reaching the top. All the others kind of climbed up and then gave up and went down again. It was his own grandson, the Tzemach Tzedek, was called Menachem Mendel. And when the game was over, he called him in and he said, Menachem Mendel, can you explain to me why you managed to reach the top, whereas everyone else slipped and gave up much before? He said, I'll tell you the difference. Listen carefully. I will tell you the difference. All my friends kept climbing up and then looking down, really, really chuffed at their accomplishment. And then they got vertigo from being way up there. And they came down. They couldn't go up anymore. I didn't look down. I kept on focusing on the way up. I didn't get dizzy, and I was able to carry on going without getting scared. We look at life, and we look at our achievements, and then we look down, and whoa, our head starts spinning. And then we crash. We crash because, arrogance and pride in our accomplishments is dangerous. So Tzemach Tzedek taught us already at a young age. He said, don't look down, because if you look down, your head starts spinning and you fall. Keep on being focused on the very top. So what was Yaakov's reaction when he woke up and realized where he had slept? Torah describes his reaction to us. And so he woke up and he says, wow, God is here. I didn't know. And we discovered that the place where he was actually directly opposite the Beit HaMikdash. We're told that the Holy Temple exists even now. It's in heaven. It's waiting to come down. So there's a Jerusalem above, Jerusalem below, and there's a temple above, and there's a temple below. So he was in a sanctified place, and he suddenly realized that he's by the gateway to heaven. That's what that ladder is. And this is the house of Hashem, and it's very frightening. And I want to tell you a quick story related to this verse, and we'll end with that. And we'll do for load shedding, which doesn't always wait till after 8 o'clock. So I hope I get to tell you the full story. And if not, well, there'll be another opportunity. Hopefully we get through this. But this is what he said. How awesome is this place? This is the house of God, and this is the gateway to heaven. And this goes back to 2007. I went to visit the Ukraine, and I went to the town of Medjugorje. And Medjugorje is the place of the town of the Baal Shem Tov, where he had his shul, and a quaint little place. Did I look young? How many years ago was that? Okay, never mind. Just before and after, yeah. That's the town of Medjugorje. As you can see, they still get around as they did in the Baal Shem Tov stories. Beautiful little place with a lake. There's the ancient cemetery of Medjugorje, but of course they have over the grave of the Baal Shem Tov built a magnificent structure, and they've redone the graves in white with markers. And my father may be next to, as you can see here, Rabbi Yisrael Baal Shem Tov, he must have taken that picture. This is the Baal Shem Tov shul. It was reconstituted. It was only destroyed, I think, between the wars. So there were photographs and drawings of the actual shul. So they rebuilt it according to those drawings, etc. I think that man was our driver. This is the inside of the shul, and it's kind of reconstituted as it was. I don't know if you can see in this picture, but it looks like there's more than one Aron Kodesh. There's the one here, and there was something else in in the corner there, I discovered that's the place where the Baal Shem Tov actually used to stand and daven, and that's kind of you can't really get to the spot, but you can get very close to it. And you'll see why I get. So this is the Aron Kodesh, and there is the place where the Baal Shem Tov used to daven. Some old stenders there, and actually did a mincha service there, if I'm not mistaken myself. And you can see here the words Makom Tfilat HaBaal Shem Tov HaKadosh. This is a place where the Baal Shem Tov used to pray. And if you zoom in, here we go. Those are the words I showed you earlier, and that's why I'm sharing the story. It says here, how awesome is this place? Ein Zekim Beit Elokim. This is the house of God. This is Sha'ar Shamayim. This is the gateway to heaven. And the Baal Shem Tov used to say that this place is kind of connected, not geographically, but spiritually, with the Bet HaMikdash Mala, with the temple above. That's where, as I said to you, I did a mincha service. So I leave you with that picture. What is that? What's the relevance of the story? That the gateway to heaven doesn't have to be in the middle of the Judean desert. The Baal Shem Tov created that gateway right in his shul in Mezheguzh in the Ukraine, but it can be in your home. Just make sure that you put the ladder firmly on the ground, that you point it up, that you keep looking up. Have a good night.